My dear students of class 8A and 8B, today's teaching is mentioned as the part of civics. In my previous class, I discussed about the role of the president, the functions of the president, and now today I am going to teach about the role of the prime minister, the functions and powers of the prime minister. Now, Prime Minister. Prime Minister is the head. The Prime Minister is the leader of the majority party. He is the head of the government and he is the chief spokesperson in the Lok Sabha on behalf of the government. Since India follows a parliamentary form of government, in this system, the Prime Minister is the head of the government. The President is the nominal head, but the Prime Minister is the administrative head. Each and every work of the government is done by the Prime Minister, and the decision of Prime Minister is final. Before taking any decision, the Prime Minister may consult the Council of Ministers, Cabinet, may consult, may not consult, but depended on his will and wish, because the Cabinet is formed, the Council of Ministers is formed by the Prime Minister himself. That's why the power of the Prime Minister is the power of the Prime Minister. He can enjoy his all powers independently without being, influenced by anyone else. The Prime Minister's, role in taking any decision is also important, because the Prime Minister always, conveyed all the decisions to the office of the President, and that's why it is said that the Prime Minister is a link between the Council of Ministers and the President. The Prime Minister has the power to advise the President during the time of appointment or dismissal of any dismissal of portfolios, ministers, head of the state, head of the judicial authorities, means Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Chief Justices of the High Courts and other judges. The Prime Minister can dismiss them through the President. The Prime Minister advises the President to dismiss him or her, according to which the President can dismiss them. So, the Prime Minister enjoys all powers, being the head of the government. The Prime Minister, the President dissolves the Lok Sabha. The President dissolves the Lok Sabha, but how? On advice of the Prime Minister. On advice of the Prime Minister, the President can adjourn the House, the President can dissolve the Lok Sabha. Now, so these are the powers of the powers of the Prime Minister. And this is the relations with the President, the relationship between the Prime Minister and the President. And now relations with Cabinet. Now relations with Cabinet. The Prime Minister forms the Council of Ministers, as I mentioned earlier. The Prime Minister forms the Council of Ministers. The Prime Minister decides on the categories of the ministers and their portfolios, how many members, how many will become the members, as how many ministers will take oath as the Council of Ministers and Cabinet Ministers. Each and every decision is taken by the Prime Minister, and it is depending on the Prime Minister whom he will or she will choose as the Council of Ministers or as the Cabinet Ministers. The Prime Minister's decision is final in these cases. There are three categories of ministers: Cabinet Ministers, Ministers of State, and Deputy Ministers. The Ministers of State are given independent charge and assistant cabinet ministers, but the deputy ministers, they are dependent on Council of Ministers and cabinet ministers. and there no need to there no need to attend all the meetings, but they are given necessary informations regarding the discussions of the meetings. But cabinet ministers and council of ministers are supposed to attend all the meetings called by the prime ministers. The prime minister can dismiss a minister at any time from the ministry or from the cabinet by asking him or her to resign. In that case, the portfolios can then be reshuffled or reallocated by the prime minister. But every part of work is done with the help of the president. Initially, the prime minister advises the president to dismiss him from ministry, according to which the president dismisses the ministers, but it is done on the advice of the prime minister. So this is relations with cabinet. Next, relations with parliament. Relations with cabinet, relations with the parliament. That will be parliament. Relations with the parliament. Relations with the parliament. We discussed about the relations with the cabinet, relations with the president. These relationship between the prime minister and the cabinet, relationship between the prime minister and the president, I discussed. Now I am going to teach you about relations with parliament. Relations with parliament. The prime minister leads the Lok Sabha and he is the chief spokesperson of the government in the Lok Sabha. Each and every complicated questions the prime minister has to face. The questions which are raised by the members of the parliament, suppose one minister failed to answer it. Suppose one minister failed to satisfy the need and expectations of the member of parliament who raised that question. In that case, the prime minister has to come forward for his satisfaction by way of replying the answers with necessary statistics, necessary informations. That's why each and every minister is supposed to have necessary informations before facing the questions of the member of parliament in the House of Parliament. Because each and every part of question answering is held in front of the speaker, and each and every portion is recorded by the speaker. That's why a minister failing answering of any question of any member of parliament generally goes against the image of the government. In that case, before the image of the government, is being lost, the prime minister immediately came forward for answering the question with necessary informations for the satisfaction of the member of parliament, and in order to satisfy the speaker, so that speaker must not record, the speaker must come to know about the image of the government, and in that case the minister may be dismissed by the prime minister later. That's why each and every minister has to learn the present condition of the country, present political condition, economic condition, cultural condition of the country, and that's why they need to have necessary informations while facing any type of questions done by the member of parliament. That's why the role of the House, the role of the Prime Minister in the Parliament is very important. The important proclamations of the government are forwarded by the Prime Minister in the House. The Prime Minister is on the floor. The Prime Minister, being on the floor of the House, can face any type of problems which generally may harm the sentiment harm the image of the government, the Prime Minister protects the government. The Prime Minister, as a protector of the government, can can face these type of questions and any kind of unpleasant incident. The Prime Minister always stood and faces it confidently and makes the situation very normal. That's why the role of Prime Minister in the Parliament is very important, and this is and this relationship between the Prime Minister and the Parliament. Parliament helps a government to complete its normal tenure of 5 years. That's why the role of Prime Minister in the House of Parliament also is very important. And besides, another point we have to keep in our mind that some ministers may reply any type of questions raised by any member of Parliament, but sometimes some complicated questions, controversial questions, some member of Parliament may raise. In that case, what should be the duty of the minister? The minister has to avoid the questions. The minister has to avoid the question since the question is of no importance. See, in order to avoid this kind of any controversy, this minister has to have presence of mind. Otherwise, the whole situation is bound to be very complicated. That's why the minister's presence of mind also is required in order to avoid controversy in the House of Parliament. And Prime Minister also helps them. They always have homework before facing questions in the House of Parliament. And Prime Minister also notices and observes the activities of his members of Parliament, activities of his Council of Ministers or ministers who are generally present during debates and discussions in the House of Parliament. And whenever it is important, the Prime Minister immediately comes forward for the protection of his government in the House. Up to this, my dear students. Thank you.